So welcome to our four-part series that we are kicking off with one of our members, Miss LaShasta Bell. And so the thing what we are focusing on is response, recovery, and resilience. And that is really with a mental stability standpoint as well. So we want to focus on business resilience, but also from a mental health standpoint. How do we get there? And so she is gonna this first session is very just, basic. We want everybody to grasp the concept around mental health, what it is, how do you define it, and then how do you have more self-awareness for yourself and figure out strategies that you can implement to cope with these things. So with that being said, please help me welcome our counselor, our author and teacher, Miss LaShasta Bell. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Welcome.
I'm super excited to be here this morning. And Dewan, you explained it like it's a four-part series. And today I'm going to do my very best to contain all the beautiful, wonderful information I want to share and make sure I can get the basics so that we all start with the same foundation. And the hopes is that you guys will journey with us through this series, this four-part series. And then after that, we'll have our special little group for 6 months where you can check in and get access and ask questions, whether it's related to stress at work, stress at home with the kids. I'm here. So let me just introduce myself a little bit more in depth. I am a business owner in League City, a member of the chamber. But before all of those things, I am a woman. I am a woman on a mission of, one, choosing myself first, two, getting quality sleep, and then helping others to do the same. I have a background in education. So before going into private practice, I was a self-contained special education teacher. I was a district counselor and social worker. I was a school counselor, and before then I was like 2. So started work really young, enjoy all the work that I've done in the counseling helping field. I used to be a school counselor with CCISD and some of the other local districts. So I do have a background in school awareness and stressors as well as in the private practice sector. So in private practice, I am a certified anxiety treatment professional. I am a certified mindfully informed clinician. I'm also a certified grief specialist, which basically means I can help you get good sleep, decrease your anxiety while being present during this COVID situation, as well as other life stressors. The hopes is today that this is very interactive. If you want to show yourself, that's great. I don't mind looking at your names, but I love seeing faces. So I see a couple faces already, and I appreciate that. I love being on the stage, and while we're in Zoom world, this feels like stage-ish, except, it's hard to get that interactive piece, but we are going to be as interactive as possible. So don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm going to check the chat box frequently. So if you don't want to ask a question openly or for everyone, you can send me a message in the chat privately. I love that Gloria is already out giving us some sunshine and some clouds and getting her walk on, and yet releasing those chemicals, those happy chemicals, those endorphins and that oxytocin that's going to help her to do great throughout her day. So you guys will get a handout after this webinar, and it's a few pages. And I typically do that because, one, I want you to try to be as present as possible. And I don't know about you guys, but when people put paper in front of me, I tend to get consumed with the paper in front of me. I want to read ahead and know what's going on. And it just may be me and my ADHD, who knows? But you will definitely get this information. We're going to start with some basic definitions. We are going to talk about the numbers, what the numbers are saying, because we live in a data-driven society, and it's important to know what the numbers are saying. And then before we wrap up, you will have a strategy or strategies, because there's one on the paper, but I'm guaranteed to give you more than one because that's just how I'm set up. But you will have something that you can immediately take and start doing right away to improve your mental health. So just a quick little survey. How many of us here are business owners? And you can use the raise your hand emoji. You can chime in and say me, whatever it is you feel good to do.
Me, Glory Green.
Okay, that's 1, 2, and is it Stephen? Okay, Stephen. How many of us are parents? 1, 2, 3. Okay. David, Nicole, Hannah, Mary, Kevin, can you chime in with the raise your hand or, okay, parent, business owner?
Yes, me.
Okay. So,
It's Nicole, neither parent nor business owner.
Okay. Thank you for chiming in, Nicole. And I asked because I want to make sure that this information is for everyone, but I want to make sure that I chime in for parental support and business owner support to dig a little bit deeper as it relates to COVID and what you can do and extend to your family members and the people in your company, your employees, to help support their mental health. So how to mind your mental health. This is going to be a 4-part series. The first part, we're just going to talk about these basic definitions. So when you think about mental health, can someone tell me, like, what do you think? What are your thoughts? How do you define mental health when you hear someone say mental health?
Peace of mind.
Okay, peace of mind. Thanks for sharing, Gloria. Anyone else want to share when they think about mental health?
So I usually think of some sort of disorder, mental health.
Okay, absolutely. I've heard that plenty of times, like, oh, I don't have mental health. I'm like, excuse me? How are you living and breathing and operating without mental health? So absolutely, some people will equate it to mental health illness rather than just mental health itself. And so when we look at the definition of mental health, it's the condition of being sound mentally and emotionally that's characterized by the absence of mental illness and by adequate adjustment, especially reflecting in feelings, comfortable with yourself, positive feelings toward others, and the ability to just meet everyday demands and just the one's mental state in general. So basically, our mental health is life. It's everything. It just says for you to be able to be emotionally balanced, for you to be able to meet the demands of daily life and to feel positive about yourself and positive about others. So I don't know what part of life that didn't just hit. So understanding that our mental health should be at the top of our list. It should be prioritized above everything, because when our mental health is not well, it impacts everything around us, including our physical health. So the definition of mental health included 2 words, or alluded to 2 words, and that's emotions and feelings. And a lot of times we get these confused, or we think they're one and the same. Can anyone share with me, like, do you think emotions and feelings are one and the same, or have you been able to separate and understand the difference between the 2?
I think of them as one and the same.
One and the same, okay. Anyone else think of them as one and the same? Okay, Cassie, I see your hand went up. So they are different. And I'm going to just kind of highlight, and I'm not going to read like every definition that's on this sheet because you guys will get it. But what I'm going to do is highlight the difference between the 2. So feelings can be suppressed, whereas emotions are harder to be suppressed. Feelings are not easily shown on your face, to whereas emotions are harder to hide. Feelings, if you suppress them, they're not tremendously impactful on your health, where emotions suppression over time could lead to mental health illness, and or at some point they just kind of blow up everywhere. Feelings are harder to explain as it relates to character, where emotions are easier to explain as it relates to character. Feelings are something that's common in all of us, and it can be an internal factor or external factor when we talk about feelings. So whereas emotions come more internally. So for instance, with COVID, we've experienced lots of loss, and there's been sadness and grief. Sadness may be a feeling that takes place and it's from COVID, it's external, to whereas the grief is more internal and it's personalized to each one of us. Each one of us will grieve differently and it looked differently, where sad may be similar across the board. So that's the difference between the emotions and the feelings of things. When we look at the numbers as far as how COVID is impacting mental health, or let me just back up. Before we even look at the numbers, anyone want to share how COVID has impacted their everyday life or the way they think, their mental health, your emotional being? Does anybody want to share how COVID has had an impact?
I was wrestling with a generalized anxiety disorder, and actually found that when the pandemic hit, now that there was something legitimate to be concerned about, a lot of the anxieties actually went away. But not all of them, right? They were still partially there, but I think that the lack of interaction with people during the pandemic maybe helped or encouraged us to suppress feelings or emotions a little bit, just because you didn't have that interaction with people to be able to bounce ideas off of and explain how you're feeling about things and stuff, just kind of being cut off from that emotional contact. I think I experienced that a little bit.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And to be honest with you, some of my clients that have generalized anxiety disorder experienced some relief as well. It was almost as if, well, I don't have to go outside, I don't have to interact. And so now, instead of there being like 5 things I'm worried about, it's only this one thing. And as long as I'm in the house, I'm safe. So I absolutely get what you're saying, because several of my clients was like, oh, I actually feel better than I thought I would feel. To whereas those who may not have generalized this anxiety disorder now start to notice all of the things that they could worry about because life slowed down. Some of our introverts were excited. There were memes going around like, introvert, we're living our best life, don't have to go out, don't have to talk to anybody. And then extroverts were suffering. They were having a hard time managing not having that connection and that energy. I know for me, COVID has been such a roller coaster from like my exercise regimen, because I'm officially diagnosed ADHD, and then I'm unofficially diagnosed with anxiety. And I say unofficial because it runs in the family, so to speak. I have all the symptoms. I've just not gone and been stamped and approved. And so for me, working out was part of the way I managed those things. And when COVID hit, it was just like, okay, I got it a little bit, but because you thought in your mind, it's going to be a couple months, we'll be okay. So I'm like, okay, I can change up my routine for a couple months and get back on schedule. But then month 3 came and month 4, and before you knew it, like my workout regimen, my routine was just different. There was no necessarily having to get up and go to the office. I just had to walk to the next room. And so it was hard to have separation in a schedule when everything just kind of went together. There was moments that I was like, my mood was low and I looked to gratitude. And so for those who may be now suffering low mood or feeling just out of touch, gratitude, research has shown expressing gratitude helps to lift your mood. It helps to decrease depressive symptoms and low mood. So one of the things that I did kind of at the start, because I was like, let me be proactive, because this is something that our society has not experienced. It's worldwide. So let me just be proactive. So I did a gratitude wall, which basically I kind of took Post-its, and every day I wrote 3 things that I was grateful for on the Post-it, and I stuck it on the wall. And 33 days later, I had 33 Post-its with 3 things. And it was not a rhythm or rhyme of, oh, you can't do the same thing twice. No, I don't have time for all those rules. It was just, what were the 3 things? And part of what I experienced in that process is learning what I really needed from life, because that would be repeated. So I saw oftentimes like the sun, or, you know, being able to help people, or being able to sleep in. And so it helped me to cultivate more so what I value. So when we think about the numbers, just period in general, 53% of adults, you guys, in the United States have reported that their mental health has been negatively impacted due to coronavirus. 53%. So if we were to, right now on this call, there's 10 people on the call. That means at least 5 of us can say COVID has negatively impacted my mental health. And maybe like 5 and somebody might say an itty bit for the 3%. 36% have had sleep difficulties. And now if we back that up, I want to say like 1 in 3 adults have problems with their sleep, period, before COVID even hit. So that's a third of the people on the call could say, it's hard for me to fall asleep. It's hard for me to stay asleep. I don't have a regular bedtime and awake time. 3 of us, 3.5 of us could say that. With COVID, that slightly increased, but also alcohol consumption went up, as well as eating or not eating. So all of those things, sleep, and I don't know if I even said it at the top, but I specialize in sleep. And because anxiety, with my research and working with clients with anxiety, I realized that their sleep was usually dysregulated. And if I could help them get better sleep, it would decrease the symptoms. So research shows that adequate exercise and sleep will lower our anxiety activation level, which means the level at which anxiety kicks in. It's almost one of those things, if you're looking straight ahead and something comes in your periphery, some of us will jump and like, oh, what was that? Our anxiety activation level is heightened. Versus some of us will go, oh, that's just a bug, and kind of shoo it away. So when we regulate our sleep, we don't jump. We allow the information to go through our cortex. And I'll try not to get too nerdy with you guys, because I love the brain too. So we allow it to go through our cortex first, because all of our responses go from one place to the other. Some go through the cortex and we can rationalize it because that's left brain, and some goes through the amygdala, and that's the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and then our response is greater. So understanding that half of the adults, so if you are a business owner with employees, then half of your employees are struggling with their mental health due to COVID. And then you add being a parent and online school, or having family members that are educators or been laid off, then that escalates the stress. So before 2020, 1 in 5 adults experienced mental health illness each year. 1 in 25 adults in the US experience serious mental health illness each year. And 1 in 6 youth from ages 6 to 13 experience mental health disorders. So this was before COVID was even on our radar. The numbers were not extremely high, but they were high enough for there to be a concern. When we look about job loss and income and worry with COVID, we're at about 58%. 58% of adults are either have been impacted with a job loss or concerned about their income. And that's a high number. To me, that's a high number. And there's other numbers and charts on the handout that you guys will get and be able to look at, for yourself. So anybody wanting to share experiencing any symptoms or concerns or anything like that from at this current time?
This is Gloria. I know I have more OCD issues with washing hands and just being extra careful with, all of that.
Okay. when you say OCD, tell me like, what does that mean for you? Because we use words, but we all define them differently. So do you
So
feel
I
like,
already wash my hands. So I already wash my hands about 20 times a day. So now I'm even more aggressive. And with my husband, especially, I'm like, have you washed your hands? Did you wash your hands? And he says, Gloria, I'm turning around washing my hands when I don't even know.
gotcha. What is, you're breaking up a little bit, but what does washing your hands do for you?
Oh, if I touch something like keys, I have to wash my hands. Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Someone was calling in. But if I touch keys or something, I have to wash my hands. I feel like
Okay.
I have to.
Gotcha. So and so when you have that feeling, that's actually like a compulsion, because the compulsion is the thought and the obsession is the actual action. And so if you're wanting to like decrease the washing of hands, when you feel like you need to wash your hands, asking yourself, like, when was the last time I washed my hands? Who else has touched this where there would be a need to wash my hands? Because if it's your keys and you only touch your keys and you're already washing your hands 20 times a day, your keys are literally like as clean as your hands, right? You're muted. I can't hear you. I think I lost you, Gloria.
Not necessarily, because if you go to the grocery store, right, and you come back in and you touch your keys, then something in the grocery store you may have touched now is on your keys.
Gotcha. Are you sanitizing your hands when you go to the grocery store? Or when you leave the
Yes.
grocery store?
Yes.
Okay.
I should
And
have stock.
and so sometimes it's a matter of checking in with the facts. Like when we start to feel anxiety, because anxiety is basically overwhelming thought or worry about something that it feels really big. And so when we take a moment and just kind of check the facts of what we know to be true, it oftentimes helps to lower the anxiety and the impulses. So maybe checking in with yourself when you think about it, asking those questions, and then deciding from there if you really need to wash your hands or if you're just wanting to wash your hands because it's reassuring for you, and then finding other things that you could do to reassure you that you're okay, that you're safe from COVID.
Right. Thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. So there is a process that I want to kind of take us through, about 3 steps to check in with your and label like your feelings and your emotions. I'm getting some feedback. Are you guys hearing feedback? What happened different? Let's see. Okay, I think we're okay now. And so a lot of times when we are feeling something internally or externally, or feeling our emotion, we ignore it. Or if it's uncomfortable, we ignore it, or we try to do something to create a more comfortable feeling. So for instance, some of us may have experienced some sadness, some worry about not being able to go out, or our kids returning to school, or the state of our business, or if we have, younger kids or older adults, our parents being sick, and we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to say it aloud because some of us feel like, oh, we'll jinx the situation. If we say this out loud, it's a jinx. Or, to talk about it with someone, I don't want to make them feel the way I'm feeling. And so when we talk about, remember, feelings it could be from an external factor or internal factor, and those can be similar, but emotions, we get to kind of choose that. My clients come and talk to me all the time. I don't necessarily experience what they are experiencing because I know my role there is to listen and to support them. And so we have family members and friends that are in the same capacity. They will not experience what we're experiencing the way we experience it. And so there's value in being willing to talk about it If you don't want to talk to someone about it, there's value in journaling. If you don't like to write, even using like the voice memo on your phone and just kind of checking in with your feelings. So being able to accept the emotion, like whatever it is, to accept it. Like this is how it feels. This is what my body is experiencing, and it's okay. And then understanding where you experience it in your body. How many of us have had like a gut feeling? Most of us, right? What do you do with your gut feeling? Like when you have a gut feeling, what is the next thing that you do?
Analyze it, see if it's something you want to go with or not.
Analyze it. Okay. Anybody else? What do you do with your gut feeling?
I listen to it.
Listen to it. Okay. What does it mean to listen to it?
Well, sometimes gut feelings come with issues or things in life that may not be quite your current focus. Sometimes you may be searching for direction, and you may get a sense of this is what I need to do. And then there's that process you go through. Am I going to take action on this? Or is it just something that's kind of come and needs to sit? Or that kind of stuff. But for me, they're quote unquote gut feelings. I've had several strong ones over in my career that were very meaningful, that caused major changes in direction. So listening to them and then evaluating, do you take action on them? And one of them was actually my decision to retire.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing.
It was an epiphany, just totally unexpected. Wasn't thinking about it, wasn't looking for it. It happened. And then I listened, and then we studied it for a short period of time, made a decision. So.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, David. So what I'm hearing you say is when your gut feeling comes up, you pause, like Stephen said, he analyzed and take action. You pause and kind of do the same thing. Like you said, you got to research, look into it, almost like asking questions of it. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, what is this about? What is this, to get more information? And then there's action. Gloria, you were sharing something?
I pray. And I think women sometimes can be really different. So where my husband would analyze it and do all of that, I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants and believe in the power of prayer. So of course, you know, I feel like it's a discernment and, you know, and analyze it, I guess, that way. But to me, prayer is so powerful.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And some people will call it their gut feeling. Some people will call it discernment. Some people will call it the Holy Spirit. So some people will call it the ancestors speaking to them. But the most valuable thing as it relates to your mental health is recognizing that there is a sensation taking place in your body. And I went to the gut because most of us can relate to the gut, but we ignore other sensations. Sometimes like the tightening in our shoulders, we'll be like, oh, I'm just stressed, rather than saying, okay, what is this tightening about? What am I carrying? Or what do I feel like I'm carrying that's creating tightness in my shoulders? Or even like sometimes when we have aches and pains throughout our body, we will quickly go to it being something external rather than looking internally and connecting it to a possible emotion or feeling. For example, like my mom for years struggled with anxiety. And the funny thing is I'm a licensed counselor and so is my younger sister. So we would have conversations in recent years with her and she'll bring up something and we'll go, that's anxiety. That's anxiety, like almost kind of in a joke some ways, but for her to start to be able to recognize how anxiety was impacting her life in so many ways. And so finally she decided, okay, I'm gonna do something about it. Started taking medication, and then she was like, oh my God, my body doesn't ache anymore, and this doesn't hurt, and this, and she was like, are you literally telling me all of that could have been related to my anxiety? And we're like, absolutely, because we're all one being. It's all interconnected. There's no disconnect from the mental and physical. Research is even showing, even more so now, that when we have a healthy gut, and our gut is our whole digestive system, up from the moment you swallow and the whole process that takes place with your food, that's what's considered your gut. And so medically, they're finding that when our mental health is well, our digestive system is better, and vice versa. So I so love that even the medical field and science is now connecting the two to show us we're all one being. So we have a whole nervous system that takes place, and we a dorsal vagal nerve, and part of that nerve encompasses our organs, our stomach and all. And so when something is not quite right, or something needs to, like David said, it's not readily on our radar, but we need to pay attention to it, that's what starts to happen in our gut. And sometimes it's things that we've prayed about, sometimes it's things that we've worried about, and then eventually physically there becomes a sensation that says, okay, let me sit down and take note of that. You know, for those who have kids or who have raised kids, whether you birthed them, inherit them, you know, gathered them from the neighbor's house, whatever, when you start to have that relationship with them and your nervous systems integrate, when they're not okay, you can feel it. And that's why some people have said, oh, I need to call because they came up for me. Something may not be right. And we call because our nervous systems, we're in relationship, and research says that two nervous systems is actually, they integrate so tightly that it's smaller than one. So when we're in relationship with people, it's not just oh, hey, how you doing that happens, our whole being integrates. And that's part of the reason why we can sense when something is not right with some of our loved ones. It's all full circle. So when we talk about accepting the emotion, the one thing I want you guys to start doing is like seeing where you sense it in your body. Outside of your gut, yes, your gut, you're good. Seems like everybody's silent. When that gut happened, you're silent. We know, let's pause, let's sit with it. But what about the other things? What about when there's tingling in your hands? Or what about when there's like a sharp pain in your back? I want you to take some time to do the same. Like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Is it showing up for me anywhere in my body? And then once you're able to do that, the next thing would be to identify and label it. Instead of saying, I am angry, being able to say, this is anger. Instead of, I am sad, this is sad. Because this is something we're experiencing. It's not who we are. We're experiencing it. And the more that we're able to do that, the more willing we'll be to sit with these feelings and sit with these emotions and work through them. The moment that it's like, I've had clients say, well, I shouldn't feel this way. And so when they say that, it's almost like they're guilty for feeling that way, or they don't feel like they deserve to feel it. When it's like, okay, what if we were to say, instead of I am, this is, could you work with it better? And what I've noticed is that they're able to work with their feelings and emotions better when they say this is instead of I am. Does that kind of resonate for anybody?
It does. I think that takes a lot of practice, because it's sometimes you know that it's just stress, but you don't know. I don't know what I'm stressed about. I've been doing the same job for 10 years, and you know what I mean? I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. I just know it's stress or anxiety. But I think it can be really healthy to identify it. But I'm not good at it right now. You know, trying to do that. I think it does take a lot of work and practice, and, you know, really thinking through it, and it can be really daunting, I think, when you've not practiced it ever, you know?
Absolutely. I'm not going to tell anyone that this is easy work, because literally it's a mindset shift. It's a way of rewiring the brain for a different outcome. And when clients come into therapy, I'm like, this is hard work. We're about to be in here doing some heavy lifting, but I'm here with you. And so one of the ways, Stephen, to like start to make it a little bit easier is being intentional and like incorporating it in your day. You know, just period. Not when it's like, oh, it's heavy or I'm stressed, but just checking in and saying like, how am I feeling today? Right now in this moment, if you guys had to label how you're feeling in this moment, what would you label it? What emotion would you give what you're experiencing? What feeling would you give it? You don't have to share it aloud if you don't want, but just take a moment. Was that hard? Some people like, yeah, some people like, eh. So there is, if you Google feelings wheel, and I'll make sure I send it to the one and or Mary so they can send it out to you guys. But a feelings wheel is just what it is. It's a circle and it's kind of color coded with different feelings and emotions. And when you identify one, it will give a range of possible others that you could feel. And it starts to help you with more than like mad, sad, and happy. Because I'm not biased at all. Well, I am, but not in this space, because we all have biases, but that's another story for another day. But men in our society have not been afforded the luxury of feeling more than a few emotions at a particular time in a particular way. I give the example of, if you see a 2 or 3 year old little girl fall and scrape her knee, and a 2 or 3 year old boy fall and scrape his knee, the dialogue from the adults is completely and totally different. I've heard little boys be told, oh, get up and be a man. Be a man? He's 3. Like, 3. A man, like he can't even spell man. Or, you all right, brush it off. Or, it's not that bad. Or, you're not bleeding. You're not gonna die. To whereas the little girl is coddled and, oh my gosh, and let me kiss your boo-boo, and it's clean and it's bandaged with a little pink band-aid. And the more she cries, the more she's attended to, and the cry continues to elevate as the coddling takes place. And so literally that's how we grow up in society. Women are more vocal with their feelings and emotions because that's what they've been taught. When we do this, we are heard, we are taken care of, and men are more closed off and suppressed because that's what they've been taught. It's not that bad, get over it, move past it, you're not gonna die. So we become adults and we literally, get together, want to have families, and then it's like, are you going to be emotional? Like, how are you feeling? What you mean? Like, I only have 3 choices. Whereas the women, we have like 25 options. And so the way to develop out being able to check in and label what you're feeling and experiencing, you can use that feelings wheel and go from there. So let's see. Okay, someone says, depends on how you were raised. If you had a very strong mother who is a man hater, you might have heard, suck it up, don't cry, etc., etc. Absolutely. Absolutely, Nicole. So it does depend on how you're raised. And when I give that example, it's like a generalization. But if you were raised with in a single parent home or in a home where emotions were not allowed, then it would be the same thing, whether you are male or female. And so just understanding that perspective will help you to be more compassionate with yourself in the journey of labeling feelings or expressing feelings, because a lot of times we don't know how, and then we become critical of ourselves for not knowing something that we feel like we should know, but who we weren't taught. If there was not an example or there was not any teaching, it's hard to be able to do. So taking that moment, checking in. So Stephen, like making it part of a routine. There are apps, amazing apps. One I recently started using and exploring, and my clients have fallen in love with, is called Shine, Shine. And it literally does a morning check-in. So if I go to the app, let's see, what was today? Today's reflection was, what does your best look like right now, LaShasta? So there's like a 9-minute meditation that talks about how to decide what your best is and how to be okay with what your best is right now. So it's different themes each day. And then at night it checks in and say, like, reflect on your day. What was one thing you felt was good about the day? So it's just those reminders and that bump in of, let me take a moment to reflect. Journaling is a good way to do that as well. Just in the morning, taking it and like, how am I feeling right now? And then at night, checking in, how was the day? How do I feel in this moment? So just making it a practice. You can literally voice record it on your phone on the way to the office, whether the office is 20 feet from the bedroom now or down the street. So you can just taking the moments and being intentional is the whole idea. So once you like label the emotion and saying this is instead of I am, the next thing is realizing that it's impermanent. Like, it's gonna pass. Some of us, when we have uncomfortable, difficult feelings, we want to stuff them because we are afraid of what will happen if we let them be. Well, when you stuff them, they come back up later and they come back with force. And it's unexpected and usually ends up being a hot mess. I don't know too many people who have stuffed their feelings over time and didn't have some type of explosive, uncomfortable situation that took place. Whether it's blowing up on your kids, your spouse, an employee, and then like, dang, they really didn't deserve all that. She just forgot to take the K cup out after she got her coffee. I didn't have to go in on her that way. So that's usually what happens when we stuff our feelings. We feel like we're in control when we do that, though. And it's fake news, to be honest. Like, you're not in control because it's going to come up later. We are in the most control when we address them, when we share them, because we get to decide how we share, how we address them, to what extent. That's control. And when we do that, they pass. Like, literally. How many of us have ever been angry? How many of us have ever been sad? How many of us have ever been happy? Are you still angry, sad, and happy right now? It passes, right? Like, they pass. They do not stay forever. Typically, emotions and feelings will stay longer when we are resistant to them. Whether it's stuffing them, whether it's criticizing ourselves for feeling that way, that's when they usually stay longer than they really should. They're like, I'm ready to go. Can you let me go? Can you release me? That's my in my mind, if there was a conversation to be had, to me, that's what emotions and feelings would be saying. Like, literally, can you just acknowledge that I'm here so I can go? I have somewhere to be. I need to be over at Nicole's house by 10 o'clock. Why are you still holding me up over here, Gloria? Can you just acknowledge me and release me? I gotta go. That's to me. And so when something comes up and it's a difficult, uncomfortable feeling, I tell myself, like, this is not a forever place. But if you drag your feet, if you try to distract yourself with something else, it's just going to stay longer. So when we are experiencing a low mood because, like, the numbers are getting higher with COVID, business is decreasing, kids are having to work from home, and how are we going to separate everybody in a room where sound doesn't carry and your stress starts to elevate, just taking a moment and saying, you know what, it's a lot, and it's okay for it to feel like a lot. We'll figure it out. Simple as something as simple as that. And I know I make it sound simple. I know it's hard. I absolutely do. I know that it's hard. The more you practice, the better you get at it. So when we do that, then we realize that the emotion isn't forever and that it'll pass. So you'll get these 3 steps to check in and label your feelings in the handout. Does anybody have any questions about what we have discussed up to this point? I hear somebody unpausing. Any questions?
I wanted to mention something else that we haven't discussed, if that's okay.
Absolutely, go for it.
So I was the divorce care director at Grace Church Houston for 10 years, ministry leader. And so it's divorcecare.com. And I know I'm already getting, I should say divorcecare.org. But I'm already getting a lot of calls because couples are fighting, people are home, getting on each other's nerves, their last nerves. And so, you know, you hear the high rate of divorce is skyrocketing right now. And it's just really, really sad. And, you know, my husband works from home, I work from home. So, you know, I know what it feels like. Luckily, you know, I'm able to escape. And right now he walked out the door for an assignment for about 3 or 4 hours. But it's hard to hear that, you know, people calling and crying out for help in desperate situations at a time where families should really be coming together, taking care of one another, loving each other, because life is short. I had a friend call me a couple days ago that her 38-year-old son died of COVID and left behind 2 little boys. So this is serious. This is life. This is real. And I think that, you know, for me, being in divorce care, I'm like, you know, you can't be silly. This is a time to love each other and stick it out together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. We haven't addressed that and at all. It will come in the other parts of the series, because this is very preliminary, basic information of definitions, how to know the difference between emotions and feelings, how to identify them. Because before we can talk about how to interact and communicate with people we're in relationship with and our spouses, we got to know where we stand, like individually. And so that will be part of one of the talks in the series, where we talk about the relationship and being, quarantined and what that looks like, and how to even offer help to others and still stay safe, because it feels good to do good. That's altruism. And a lot of us thrive on altruism, but in this COVID world, it's been hard to help in the ways that we're used to helping and what it looked like, because it was very personable and contact and support and face-to-face. And divorce.org is great. I refer clients oftentimes to the groups there for support. So we will get to that. Just like at I Choose Me, when clients, whatever they come in for, we start with self. I'm like, I Choose Me is not just a fancy name. This is a whole life journey that I've gone through in the last 8 years or so. And so being very intentional of, let's create this foundation and this base. Because if part of what's happening with couples is I had one client say during COVID, he spent more time with his spouse than the whole marriage, right? So you get to know somebody a little bit different when you guys are in the same space for months and months at a time, and you're not addressing your own individual feelings, but you're bringing them to a conversation that the other person has no clue that you're feeling that way, because you haven't even checked in with yourself. And I can say that some days I'm guilty of that. I can be irritable and know that I'm irritable, and I get it, Stephen. It's hard, because some days I'm like, I should have paused. I knew I was irritated, but I didn't pause to try to find the source so that I could address it, so that I'm not carrying it to another conversation. I'm not carrying it into this relationship with my son or this relationship with my husband. And when we don't do that, then that's where the friction comes. And during COVID has all of our attention. And we're wondering what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's going to happen. But we're not taking time to we're not taking time to check in with our own emotions. So yes, Gloria, that is coming. Yes, the rate of divorce has increased during COVID. Also, the rate of the percentage of domestic violence has increased, as well as alcohol consumption, which helps us to also understand that we will turn to maladaptive ways of coping when our stressors get too high. And so that leads me into wanting to talk about mindfulness. Mary, you asked about the waiting room. Let's see.
It was me, Gloria. Somebody texted me to say they were in the waiting room trying to get approved to come onto the call.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, let me see if I
It's
can.
okay. It's okay. They already left. That's fine. But they can.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and that there'll be a replay available. And I failed to ask him to make me co-host so I could take care of that. But we'll get it done on the next time. Okay, so yes, we will discuss that more in upcoming series. So when we talk about coping and knowing like what's good for us, like you said, Gloria, you went for a walk, you and your husband know how to kind of take breaks, how to move around one another in the same space to help make sure that you stay calm and cool tempered. One thing that I so enjoy is mindfulness. Mindfulness is, in its most simplest terms, I'm gonna give you the technical definition, but the way I define mindfulness for me is using as many of my five senses as I can to be present in the moment without judgment. That's how I define it for me. I'm going to tell you how, Webster defined it and mindful.org. It's on your paperwork that you'll receive. So the practice of maintaining non-judgmental state of heightened or complete awareness of one's thoughts, emotions, or experiences on a moment-to-moment basis, such as a state of awareness. That's Webster. Mindful.org is just that. It's a site about mindfulness that you can go and get more information and get different ways to practice mindfulness. But it describes or defines mindfulness as the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we are doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So usually what I start at the top of a anytime that I do a talk is we do a brain dump. And a brain dump is literally taking a moment and everything that's on your mind, writing it down. So we're gonna pause now and do a brain dump. I'm gonna give you guys a couple minutes, and whatever is on your mind, I just want you to write it down. If you don't have pencil and paper, you can put it on a notepad of your phone. So I'm gonna give 60 seconds. I'm gonna set a timer, and I just want you to dump your brain. Whatever comes up, it doesn't matter how random, just dump it. No judgment. We're gonna practice mindfulness, just no judgment. Okay, that's the timer. Does anybody want to share anything that's on their list in their brain dump? I'll go first because I'm the one, I usually just put myself out there because I do it when you guys are doing it because it's good for me. So why are my hands and feet cold? Is my lighting okay? How will this noon workout go? Because I usually work out in the morning and today is noon. And then I'm kind of hungry. Those were the things that were on my mind. Anyone else want to share?
I'll just share the cycle. Mine usually start out with complaints about just certain things that I wish were different. And then I feel a little guilty about that. And so I try and change over to something that I'm appreciative of. Then list out a couple of things of those, and then usually what happens with me. Usually first off, it starts off something I'd like to be a little bit different.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share? No pressure. No pressure at all. So the reason that we did the brain dump right now is because I wanted to show you guys how even when we're in a place to do a particular thing, we're not fully engaged. Like we still have a lot going on in our mind. And so to practice mindfulness would mean to use your five senses. So being able to say like, what can I see? I can see the names on the screen. I can see Cassie in her office. I can see Stephen in his office. What can I hear? To engage in the moment. The brain dumps are good to use in the morning or before bed to help you sleep. And we'll talk about that function and how that functions later in our series. But I used it right now to show how we can be very unmindful. And that adds to the stress. So how you said earlier, Stephen, like you could be stressed and not really know why because there's nothing that seems externally different. But if you take a moment and go like, okay, what am I thinking about? What have I added to the list of what's usually on my mind? That may be the place where you're feeling the additional stress, even when there hasn't been any external changes. It's the same job, it's the same family, it's the same routine. Okay, but you found out yesterday that such and such has COVID-19 or they have to close their business. And while it's not anything physically different, emotionally something is taking place differently, which adds to the stress, then you feel it physically in your body. So being able to be intentional about let me take a minute, let me take 2 minutes and practice mindfulness. Now, mindfulness can happen at any time. I'm not suggesting that you go from being busy to, oh, let's sit and meditate. It's great if you can. I'm a meditator, so I'm not like throwing shade to meditation. Time to do it is like one of the biggest barriers, one of the biggest obstacles. So with mindfulness, you can couple it with anything. You can mindfully eat. You can mindfully shower. I suggest when you start out, just mindfully brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth is something that most of us do at least once a day, if not twice a day, if not 3 times a day. So if you are mindfully brushing your teeth, I'm gonna use the pen like it's the toothbrush because I'm sure you guys didn't want to see my toothbrush this morning. So we'll use the pen. To mindfully brush your teeth would be like, okay, you looking at your toothbrush. So I'm just gonna envision this is my toothbrush. And so I'm seeing that it's white and it's purple and that the bristles are, you know, straight edge or they may be bent, whatever. You're taking a moment to observe your toothbrush. What does it look like? Because that's all you're doing. It's just looking at it and saying what you see. I see some pink, you know, oh, I see some corn from last night. I need to re-rinse that, whatever it is. And then you do your toothpaste and you look at your toothpaste, you observe the toothpaste, what color, what can you smell? Because that's another sense. What does it feel like? You could touch the toothpaste if you wanted to. And then you start to brush your teeth. And now you incorporate taste. What does the toothpaste taste like? What does it feel like in your mouth? What does brushing your teeth sound like? What are you seeing as you're brushing your teeth? That's it. Practicing mindfulness has been known to decrease depression symptoms, to decrease anxiety, to improve mood. There is a plethora of research that with mindfulness, even to help like lower blood pressure. It has been shown to, even with research in helping the treatment of cancer patients and those who practice mindfulness, having more success in their treatment than those who do not. So you literally can incorporate it at any point in time in your day. Now I'm gonna tell you about mindful eating. It's difficult for me because it takes being very intentional with when you eat, still doing all the observations, the smell, the touch, the feel, the taste, the color. But when you get ready to put a food in your mouth, you have to literally put your fork down. And this is what I noticed. Most of us don't put that fork down. We're chewing and we're going in for the next bite with the fork or with the spoon or whatever utensil we're eating with. But you put it down, you put your utensil down and you chew everything that's in your mouth and swallow it before you pick the utensil back up for the next bite. This results in eating a lot slower. It also results in eating less. And so if you're on a journey of health and nutrition and weight loss, mindful eating will be a perfect insertion. It's just really hard for me. I've been a fast eater all my life. I was the one that my mom would say, stop putting all that food in your mouth. Like, slow down. It's not going anywhere. I can't tell you why. It's just a thing. And so it's harder for me to do mindful eating than other acts of mindfulness. But every once in a while, when I feel like unsettled, tremendously unsettled, I will practice mindfully eating because I know that it takes more for me to focus and to do it. And so then I'm present right there in the moment and everything else just washes away. You can practice mindfully walking. So like Gloria went on a walk this morning already. If that's part of your everyday routine or 3 times a week or whatever it may be, you can incorporate the mindfulness in your walk. It can be, you know, what do I see? What do I hear? How does my foot feel when it hits the pavement? What do my arms do when I'm walking? Just to bring you right in the moment. So anyone have any ideas of how they could easily insert mindfulness into their day?
I think all 3 of those are really good suggestions. If I can ask one question, I feel like sometimes when I've tried mindfulness or like breathing exercises and stuff like that, it does like bring the blood pressure down and kind of ease the anxiety and stuff until the activity is over. And then it's like it comes right back. So is there a formula to, you know, how many times a day to practice the mindfulness, or is it just over time doing these things several times throughout the day that it eventually helps? Or, you know, what would be your suggestion to that?
So definitely the more you practice it, the more lasting impact it has. Some of the research that I've come across the results are based on at least 2 weeks of doing it at various intervals to see the biggest impact. But with there being the GAD, the generalized anxiety disorder already existing, it's going to hit a little different for you. And so it may take doing that with other coping strategies and skills for it to feel more impactful. And so the whole idea is just in that moment. You know, if you are accomplishing what you want to accomplish and your blood pressure is lower and you're feeling calm in that moment, then it's success. It's just about duplicating it over and over again. And the part 2 of this series, I'm gonna give like 4 steps about managing anxiety. And it's gonna be part of the graphic. There'll be a graphic attached where there's 4 steps that you go throughout the day that I've been doing it for years with my clients and they've seen success. So that's gonna be bridged in part two. So if you're not able to make it, at least register so that you can get the information and the playback. But yes, with mindfulness, you can do it as many times throughout the day as you need to. And it can be as quick. You can do a body scan, even like, scan from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet of where there's tension, and then breathing in that place. So part of when we do a body scan is like what is my scalp feeling? What is my forehead feeling? And if there's tension in any place, it's difficult for me to envision, but it's easier to explain and easier for others to do. But like a well with a blowhole, and wherever you feel the stress, envisioning a blowhole in that place and breathing in and out through that blowhole to release the tension in that place. It's been really successful for other people. It's just like it tickles me to envision a blowhole over any part of my body. So I get like distracted. It's probably the ADHD talking or whatever. So I'll just breathe into that space. So for me, like when I'm feeling tension in my shoulders, I will take a moment and breathe into my shoulders, and I visualize the breath and the oxygen going through the muscles in my shoulders, and that's how I release the tension. But for others, the blowhole works really well. So it's just a matter of which one works, and just doing that throughout the day, taking a moment to scan. I like to suggest when it's a new practice that you're incorporating to go ahead, grab your phone and set alerts to do it, because that's the way it becomes routine. So if you want to practice mindfulness like every couple hours, going in on your calendar for 2 minutes of mindfulness with the alarm that will go off every 2 hours for you to practice mindfulness. Or if it's, wanting to practice breathing exercises or body scans, whatever it may be, to do that, to make it a routine, it's going to have to be on a schedule. If we wait for motivation, we'll be growing gray, wait, no motivation. So self-discipline is what creates new habits. And once we are disciplined to start the new habits, when there's success, that's when motivation comes. So that's what I would recommend on that side. Any other questions about mindfulness, how to practice mindfulness, what it would look like in your everyday life? If you cannot envision doing it anywhere, then let me know and I'll definitely help you find some time. So I went a little bit out of order, I just realized. So I want to back up and ask about self-care. Can everybody either drop me a message or unmute yourself and tell me how you define self-care? What's your definition of self-care? So drop me a note or in the chat or unmute yourself.
I would say self-care would be more, in my view, of stepping back from situations or even work, just work as a whole, the family, and just focus on something that makes you happy. If it's sewing or cooking or just getting out and running barefoot in the yard, just something to kind of refresh yourself internally so that you can come back with a new thought pattern.
Okay, thank you, Nicole, for sharing. That's a great definition. Okay, making time expressly for myself. Okay. Bye, Gloria. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the compliment. Anyone else on self-care? So I know that it's super trending. I'm excited that mental health is trending right now. Don't get me wrong. I do think that as a society, the picture of self-care that's been given is very much distorted. It's almost makes it seems like we have to be spending money or doing something extravagant to take care of ourselves. So my basic definition is, and this is what I govern myself, and I share this often this way because you'll come across definitions of things in mental health and be like, huh, what does that mean? And so when I look at textbook and technical definitions, I then decide, like, how does that fit my life? How can I remember it in the most simplistic form? So when I think about self-care, it becomes any thought or behavior that you do to improve and to positively impact your mental or physical health. That's it. So all the things that Nicole described, what David said, encompass that definition. So it could be a changing of a thought. So like, for instance, Stephen, you said, like, when you did your brain dump, complaints is usually what's at the top. An act of self-care could be taking one of those complaints and reframing it in a way that is now an action item, or now you've given a solution to the problem, or you address the complaint where tomorrow it won't be a complaint, it'll be a solved problem. That's self-care. It's really just about being intentional. It can absolutely be taking trips and all of those amazing things too, but it can literally be saying, when you wake up in the morning, I'm going to choose to be patient and kind today. That's self-care. It could be an affirmation of, I am calm. That's self-care. So any thought or action, it could absolutely be putting your feet in the grass. It could be taking the dog for a walk. If you are doing it to improve your mental or physical health. So like, a lot of ladies will go to the nail shop and go get manicures and pedicures, and some of the fellas too. Like, no, it's good for everyone. And I'll go, and people say, yeah, it's my self-care. But then when they're there, I can hear them on the phone, and they're having to talk about what they got to get for dinner. And so, like, how is that improving your mental or physical health at that moment? Like, you're not present, you're still multitasking. So it becomes a cosmetic act. It's not an act of self-care. It's just, for your hands to look good and your feet to look good. It becomes self-care when I can practice mindfulness, I can be in the moment, I can enjoy the sensations of what's taking place and relax. So there is things that we can do, and we'll label it self-care, but it's not positively impacting our mental or physical health. So then it's not self-care. It's cosmetic care, it's grooming, it's whatever else you want to call it. It's a business trip, but it's not at all self-care if it does not contribute to our overall mental or physical well-being. Does anybody have any questions about that and about self-care? Anyone disagree with that? I'm all for disagreement too. Like, if you hear something and you're like, oh, LaShasta, I don't know about that, let me know, because then I can go more in depth with explaining the perspective or the research.
I don't disagree with it, but I like breaking these things down because I think what you're saying is extremely healthy. One thing I've noticed with the heightened anxiety is you're naturally more aware of sensations in your body, so you feel like a little tingling thing. So without being intentionally mindful, you kind of automatically feel these things, and you're sensitive to them. Where would you draw the line on, I don't know, is that too mindful? Like, do you need to dull down the senses a little bit so that you aren't fully aware of little things like that? Because, it could be a fleeting itch that causes anxiety, for example, but you don't want it to wreck your train of thought,
Well, and I think it goes back to labeling, like being able to say, this is anxiety.
Sure.
This will pass, it's not forever. So because you can't unfeel what you felt.
Sure.
you know, it's heightened. And so also that can be like an indicator for you of, let me up my coping skills, let me up my self-care, let me up my mindfulness, because I'm on high alert. So that if the tingling sensation is consistent or frequent, then that's your body saying like, hey, we need to do something. We need to be intentional about doing something more to lower it. And one of the first things I would say is look at your sleep patterns, your sleep and your exercise. When you can get those two intact and consistent, you will notice that the tingling sensations will decrease, your anxieties will lower instantly. Like sometimes I've experienced the day, like if I get when I get a good night's sleep and I exercise, then the rest of that day I feel differently. Even though research says it's like over a couple of weeks. So maybe it's a hack, maybe it's psychological, whatever, but it works. So when I say, okay, today was a day that was stressful, my anxiety was heightened, I felt tingling in my back, you know, every sound I heard, I thought it was danger. The amygdalas are red and they're on fire. That's what's happening. So then I say, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna make sure I get up and work out. I'm gonna have a good night's rest. I'm gonna wake up and set my intentions in the morning. And the intention may be, I am safe. That may be the affirmation for the day, because when your amygdalas are activated, it's saying that there's a threat and we need to fight, we need to flight, we need to flee, or we need to fawn. That's how your brain is going to register every sensory that comes through. So what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you touch, all of those things are going to go through the amygdala and feel really big and feel like a threat. And the way that we move away from that is with sleep and exercise.
Yeah, both are inconsistent. So
And it happens, like, you know, it happens when anxiety is present, period. That's one of the reasons why I became a sleep expert, because it was, like I said, it helped my clients with anxiety. And then with COVID and the schedules changing, it's the same thing. And so it's just a matter of finding pockets of rest and allowing yourself to rest until you can cultivate and improve your sleep hygiene. And so when I don't know if it's, I think it's the fourth one that I'll talk about: routines, morning routines, bedtime routines, sleep hygiene, to seal everything, all the four together, to pull it all together. I think it's four. Don't quote me on that because I haven't mapped out all four. I just kind of know, sort of, a little bit. But if you start with allowing your body to rest, not necessarily sleep, but rest, like saying, okay, I'm gonna sit here for 30 minutes or 15 minutes and just rest. I'm gonna allow myself to just sink into the chair that I'm sitting in, or I'm gonna sit in my favorite chair or sit outside and just rest. And then establishing what time you want to go to bed and what time you want to wake up. So that's something that you can do that's preliminary and a start of improving your sleep hygiene. As far as like your exercising does great things for us, period, mentally and physically, but it will help to improve the quality of your sleep, or improve your energy. It depends on who you are. I have some people that work out in the evening because they say it helps them sleep better. I have some, like myself, I'm a morning workout because it gives me more energy throughout the day. But as far as like chemicals and what's released, when we exercise, serotonin is released as well as endorphins. And so serotonin is like help stabilize the mood, and endorphins help with like pain. And that's like, it can be emotional pain or physical pain. So exercising releases both of those, which will help to contribute to you feeling more relaxed, feeling more calm, not experiencing so many sensations in your body. And then of course the component in the side of the anxiety, it helps us stabilize that level, because when you're releasing those things, you You can't exercise and there be a threat, right? Like if you're exercising, then your body knows like where it's not a threat. Because if it was a threat, we would be like getting ready to run, getting ready to fight, whatever it may be. Also, like your water intake, and this is like for everyone, that's something that you can do and change, and that's in your control, that will improve your mental health right away, is increasing your water. When we don't have enough water and we aren't well hydrated, we experience brain fog and heightened irritability. Brain fog means it's harder to make decisions, it's harder to have clear thinking. And so when you improve your water, those two things decrease and diminish instantly. On the anxiety side, when you realize that your anxieties are heightened, if you drink water, it helps to lower your anxieties because you're swallowing. And so your nervous system is registering, if I'm swallowing, then it's not a threat, like I'm safe. And so you go, your parasympathetic system, which is your the part of your nervous system that says we're calm, we're relaxed, goes online. When we're anxious and we're worried with COVID and work and stressors and kids in school and aging parents and aging friends, then our sympathetic nervous system is online, which means there's a stress, there's a threat, and it makes us feel like we got to do something more than what we're doing, which then heighten the stress because it's one more thing that we don't have time to do.
I'll testify to that. And cold water seems to work better. So I carry a 10 around all day, and I almost feel addicted to it because every time I feel that little heightened sense of anxiety, just taking that sip of cold water just kind of settles you down, shocks you or whatever.
Good. Awesome. Exactly. So the exact what you're doing is telling your nervous system it's not a threat. So your sympathetic nervous system is saying it's a threat, and you start to feel it in your body. And then when you grab that water, you're saying, nope, nope, nope. Come on back. Parasympathetic system, let's be calm, let's be relaxed. And then when you're sipping that water, even just taking a moment to take a few deep breaths, like it doesn't really take a whole lot of extra time. It just really takes being intentional. And that's the thing that I want you guys to understand from today, that there are a whole continuum of things that we can do to address our stress at work, to address our stress at home, to address the anxieties and the impact. But it takes being, one, aware, then two, being intentional. And then the third component is reflecting back. Like how you just said, I can attest to that because when I keep my water works. So adding that reflection piece to your day by the end of the day, and that's kind of what the Shine app does. It asks you about the end of your day because it gives you a moment to reflect. When we take time to reflect, we find what works and what doesn't work. We get to celebrate our wins. We get to champion ourselves on, but a lot of times we don't reflect. So then we get stressed out again and we like, oh, and it's like, hold on, I felt this stress last week. I did A, B, and C, and I felt better. So now I can do A, B, and C. But if we don't take time to reflect, we literally recreate the wheel every single time there's a stressor or that there's a difficult emotion or uncomfortable, because we don't take the time to identify what we did to feel better or what works. And so that other component to it is taking a moment to reflect, taking time to say, how did the day really go? Because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'll rate my day based on how I feel in the moment. Not really based on how the whole day went, but in that moment. So if it's been a hectic day or it's been a calm day, but then I had a difficult client and then someone said, how are you doing? I base how I'm doing off of my last experience, not my whole day. And that's where reflection comes in, to take a moment and pause and go like, well, I've had 5 clients today and one was difficult, but for the most part, everyone is being successful in meeting their treatment goals, and that's a good thing. even like with the complaints you have on your list, even like taking a moment and saying, okay, how big is this really though? Like, yeah, the kid keep leaving his truck in the floor, but when I go in his room, there's no food under the bed, there's no da 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 da. So in the grand scheme, the truck in the floor I could deal with, and it's not that big of a deal. It's just a matter of where you put your energy and your focus is gonna make the difference. So when we talk about that, the three components is awareness, intentionality, and reflecting. So the awareness piece came in when we talked about, mental health. What is mental health? What are feelings? What are emotions? How do we label and accept the feelings and emotions that we have? That's the awareness. Where do we feel it in our body? That's the awareness. The intentionality comes with self-care and practicing mindfulness. How can I incorporate mindfulness in my day? Doing body scans, just up and down, scanning my body. Realizing that thoughts and behaviors are self-care. That's being intentional and incorporating it throughout the day, checking in with yourself. And then the reflecting is taking a moment to say, how am I really doing? How did the day really go? How are the relationships going that I'm in? When we talk about our family and the workplace, you can take these same things and incorporate it in the workplace with your employees, with your family, with your kids, with your spouse, with your partner, with your significant other, with your grandparents, with your parents, with whomever you're in relationship with. The same things work. It's like being aware, taking a moment to check in. And when you say good morning, how are you? Not when they say good, then ask them like, what's good about it? What's making your morning good so far? Like probing a little bit further rather than just kind of accepting the cookie cutter answer. Because now you are helping them to have awareness. When you have your meetings at work, whether it's a staff meeting or a conference call, a morning check-in, doing that at the start of the call. Like, good morning, everyone. We're on Zoom. Can everybody drop me a private message with one word describing how they're feeling right now, or what the state of their emotions are right now? Now you are facilitating self-awareness for your employees. And based on what they say, can be based on the next action that you take. So if someone's saying, I'm feeling depressed, then you can check in with them later individually and say, hey, what's going on? How can I be of help? Or here's some resources. Here's a counseling practice locally, or here's this website or this app, whatever it may be, you can now offer that resource. So that's how you can facilitate like self-awareness with people you're in relationship with, whether it's at home or whether it's at the workplace. And then when we talk about being intentional, when that can come in when they're like stressed or whatever it may be, and like they usually walk their dog or they pet their dog or they go volunteer at the local animal shelter, then you can say like, hey, have you done any of that recently? Like, when was the last time you went fishing? I know you enjoy fishing. Or when was the last time that, you went for a walk around your neighborhood? Because I know you usually say that brings you joy. So that's helping others to be intentional, like posing that question. Or if they see a therapist, like, when was the last time you talked to your therapist? Do you think that may be something that would be beneficial at this time? And then reflecting back, when they're feeling better and like, oh, I'm feeling so good and today's a great day. What did you do to make today great? So posing those questions with staff, with employees, with people you're in relationship with, one, you do it for yourself first, because it's I choose me, right? So you do it for you first, and then you help facilitate it in others, which will then bridge that relationship and allow for less conflict, less tension, or not conflict, less tension and less conflict that leads to maladaptive behavior. Because conflict is good. It's where we learn and we grow is in conflict. So I don't want to give conflict a negative connotation or say we shouldn't have it, because we're going to have it. It's just about what we do with it. But that's in another segment. Any questions at this point of how we practice those three things and where the information fell under each space? All right, no questions at all? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about some apps. I am very technology driven, to the point in my practice, there's no paper. Everything is like done electronically. If we wanna share things, we share them electronically. If there's documents or resources, it's usually via app, or that we know will help with whatever the symptoms are, or it's a something digital that we can send. Thank you so very much, Nicole. So when we talk about apps, Calm, C-A-L-M. So I'm gonna multitask. I'm gonna type them into the chat as I am talking about them. So the Calm app, this is a good app for meditation. It is a good app for, it has sleep stories for adults and for kids. It has meditation for kids, calming sounds. It has master classes on different topics that you can take. It also has like stretches that you can do to warm your body up, to cool your body down, evening stretches. It's just a plethora of things. One of the things I enjoy is that Matthew McConaughey does one of the sleep stories. I'm just saying, if you're having a hard time sleeping and you love to hear his voice, that may be the app to go to. So that's one. Meditative stories. Nicole, you know what I mean? Like, I've been a fan from the beginning. So meditative stories, let me say focus, but ADHD be kicking in sometimes, is a podcast. And it is stories of people that you may know, some celebrities, some not. But what I enjoy is stories about them that you may not know exist. And so they're very personal stories of triumph or overcoming obstacles, and how they did those, how they overcame those obstacles. But it's told in a meditative way. So it's very relaxing and calming. Sleep Cycle. Sleep Cycle is one of my favorites, because if you don't know already, by me saying, research says that I'm a data junkie. I don't like to do the research, but I like the results of the research. So Sleep Cycle helps. It monitors your sleep through your microphone. I get it. It's a little strange. It's a little weird, but we're being monitored anyway. You know, talk about something and go to social media. You're going to see all the advertisements in your feed of what you just talked about. So if it's going to happen anyway, may as well use it to your benefit, right? So Sleep Cycle you can set an alarm for it to wake you up at a particular time or a window of time. The window of time, the whole point of it is to wake you up when you're closest to awake already, so that it's an easier wake up. Now, let me tell you, these apps, most of these apps, probably all of these apps, I have used or tried in some capacity. The Sleep Cycle and I had a love-hate relationship for a little bit, because if I want to wake up at 6:30, I want to wake up at 6:30. Don't wake me up between 6:10 and 6:30, because I feel like you're cheating me out of my sleep, right? So I went back and forth between setting an alarm on my phone and doing Sleep Cycle to do my own little research study. And what I found is that when I'm awakened in that window, I wake up feeling more refreshed, because it's literally not snatching me out of my sleep when I'm probably at a deeper level of sleep than a lighter level. So when it has the 20-minute window or the 30-minute window, it can literally sense when you're closer to awake and go ahead and wake you up. So I was willing to forego those possible 15 minutes after my own research. So sleep cycle is one that I enjoy. I use it every night. The days that I don't need to wake up at a certain time, I just don't set an alarm, but it still monitors my sleep. I get to see how well I rested. It will monitor if you snore. Now, if your spouse snore, it's going to pick that up. So don't let it blame it on you. Like it's not you, it's them. The other part is that in the sleep cycle, it has soothing sounds. So you can play, like I like the sound of brown noise or sizzling rain sometimes. So when I know that I'm kind of wound up from the day and I want to transition to sleep, I'll put that on for 15, 20 minutes and it plays and then it turns off at the time frame, and you don't have to do anything additional to your phone. Abide is a Christian meditation app. Headspace, for educators, Headspace has been free for a little bit. I think it still is free. And some of these apps, of course, have free components and paid components. 7-day trials, 10 days trials, whatever. It's just up to you to decide what you need. I Am is an app with affirmations. You can set what topics and what subjects that you want to have affirmation in. So if you're struggling with feeling adequate at work or in your relationship, then you can set for affirmations to come. You can set the theme and what it looks like in the background. You can also set the time frame in which you get the affirmations. That's one of my current go-tos is I Am right now. I typed in the Shine app earlier. iMood Journal is another app, and it's where you can journal and log your mood. I will send this resource guide to Dewan them to send to you guys. Insight Timer is a meditation app. Pixels is a mood tracker app. A lot of my teenagers like this one, but you can use it as an adult. It helps to track your mood, and the moods are color coded. And so you can end up seeing any patterns in your mood around certain times of month, and whatever it may be. And you can, I think you get about 10 moods for free. And then if it's the paid version is like 40 different moods. Sleepa is another app that helps with your sleep and regulating your sleep. Think Up, as it helps with positive thinking. And then on my personal website, LaShastaBell.com, there's a 3-day guided journal that you can purchase a hard copy or PDF copy. And basically it's journaling 3 days a week. And it outlines, Sunday is Say Something Sunday. So it's like, what is it that is on my mind? It's that awareness piece. Tuesday is Tap In Tuesday. That's that piece of being intentional. What's the action that I'm going to do? Am I going to reframe my thoughts? Am I going to create a plan? What am I going to do to address what was on my mind from Sunday? And then Think On It Thursday is the reflection piece. So it's a 3-day guided journal on self-awareness, intentionality, and self-reflection. So I need to make sure I send this over to them. Any questions at this point? My website is LaShastaBell.com with the for the journal, and for counseling is iChooseMeCounseling.com. Let me type that in. And then my Instagram and Facebook is the that's on the for my name. So you can follow on Instagram or Facebook, where there's tips and things. And sometimes I pop in with videos to talk about various things that I'm doing, from juicing to working out to intermittent fasting to face masks, just different things that I discover along my journey of choosing myself that's been helpful or that helps. I like to share that with my audience. So, are there any other questions that I can address before we get ready to wrap up? Okay, so
I think that
what'd you
was
say, Dwayne?
great. I said I think that was great, and I see there was probably one other question. It looked like Kevin. I don't know if you addressed. He said, "What are fees associated with the journal?" And then
Oh,
somebody asked,
sorry.
"What's your website?" So it looks like people are
Okay,
trying.
I got the website and the fees associated. I want to say the PDF is like $7.99 and the journal is like $15. I don't know. It's on my website. Once the business coaching people help establish that, it kind of leaves my mind, because I love the helping piece. The business piece, I like to hire people around me to do those things. And once we have it set up, I'm like, okay, good. Like, there's a system in place. If you want the actual physical journal, I know you can select if you want to pick it up or have it mailed. It'll be a safe pickup and exchange at the office, which is over at 713 2nd Street in League City. What's going to happen from here? Like, we will have monthly until the end of the year. Well, so that's the 4-part series, and the 6-month access will be a Facebook group, and it will be based on attendance. So those who attend at least 50% of the classes or the seminars, at least 2, because it's content, and the content is going to flow from part 1 to part 2 to part 3 to part 4. And so ideally, everyone attends 4. In my mind, that's the perfect world, right? But if you grab at least 2, then when we're done with all 4, there will be a Facebook page set up with the invitation, and where you could ask questions when things come up, and we'll drop resources and such for the next 6 months. So basically, from January to June of 2021, those who are in attendance in some capacity in the webinar at least 50% of the time will have access. And it's myself and 3-4 other clinicians that's at I Choose Me, and we all have different modalities and specialties, but you'll get to have a touch from everyone, from the therapist that works with high-risk teens, to the couples therapist, to the therapists that work with the younger age kids and ADHD and oppositional defiance. So it will not just be access to me, but it'll be access to me and the other clinicians that work at I Choose Me. All right, so I appreciate the time. I thank you guys for being here and listening. I had a great time. I hope that you had a great time as well. Thank you, Nicole. I love that you love Matthew McConaughey, and you're sharing with us throughout the time. Stephen, thank you for your engagement. Cassie, thank you for being here. Hannah and David, thank you for being here. I know Gloria had to leave. Kevin, thank you for being in attendance. I appreciate you guys, and I can't wait. The next one is actually in like a couple of weeks, right, Dewan? Let me check my calendar.
Yeah,
supposed
no
to know this,
problem.
right?
No, but we'll definitely will get it on our website and everything. And you all stay tuned. Thank you for engaging with LaShasta. She is a member, very involved and active. So this is just the first part though. This is number one of a 4-part series. So stay tuned. And really quick, let me go over a few upcoming events before you guys get out of here. So all of our upcoming events can be found on leaguecitychamber.com. And if you haven't heard the great news, your chamber is moving. I actually just, I have to go visit the venue today, but we have 3-year sponsorship. So we sold out of the board plaques. Now we are doing chair sponsorships. So if you want your name on a chair, as we have all type of business owners coming into our new boardroom, make sure you take advantage of that. Only 13 left. But then we're building a nice big patio outside, right across from League Park that they just did. And so we have 5 more spots left there. Again, this is a 3-year sponsorship at a minimum. So don't miss this opportunity. It's gonna go by quick. And we just listened to What is Mental Health, the first series. And so next week, we will have the 3rd series with Memorial Hermann, COVID-19 Can't Stop Cancer Prevention. So make sure you listen to come by and check out Memorial Hermann. And then we will kick off our first session for our small business masterclass. And this is a part of the Response Recovery Resilient Initiative. So make sure you come and be present here for our first part on October 2nd. That's next Friday. And then we'll have session 2 of our HR expert, Mike Dober. He's going to discuss current trends in employee lawsuits. Don't let this be you. We want to give you all the tools to be successful, to make sure you're in compliance and your business in compliance, so that way you can definitely take care of your clients. So lastly, we have our first virtual job fair on October 1st. That's next Thursday. So if you're hiring or you know anyone else hiring, join your chamber as we combat unemployment. So thank you again. We appreciate you all staying involved and engaged, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, we're stronger together. Have a blessed weekend.